Hey everyone, welcome to another Net Plus session that we have going on here. What we're going to do is just briefly go over the objectives. I like to always start with these just in case someone isn't using them. These are very important, so I want to make sure everyone is aware of that and how to use them. There is a video in the student forum that will give you a detailed overview on how to go through and use these objectives to prepare for the exam, okay? But I'm not going to go over that today, especially since we got off to a late start today. So basically, same thing I always say, read these. It'll take you less than 2 minutes to read this stuff. It's very important to knowing what's expected of you during this exam and what you need to be ready for. So very important. Any questions that you have on the details of the exam, the structure of it, how long it's going to be, how many questions you're going to see, all that information is here. Okay, so you want to make sure that you definitely have these at your disposal. Okay, and we have these knowledge domains here. Gives you an idea of how much you are going to be tested in each section on each area. So this gives you an idea where to focus your studies. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, and then once you get into the actual meat and potatoes here, gives you a great idea of what you're going to be expected to know on the exam, what you're going to be questioned on, obviously, and you know what you need to know specifically about each of these areas. Okay, so make sure you definitely have these. Something that I say a lot, but it's probably the first thing that you should look at before you start any training. So you have an idea of what it is you're going to be learning. Should be the last thing that you look at before you sit down and take the exam. Okay, it's very important. All right. So, you know, these are the objectives. Obviously, I go over them a lot. So it's something that you're going to see. I always like to bring it up because there's always students, as much as I talk about it, there's always someone that goes into the exam without looking at these, and you're at an extreme disadvantage if you make that mistake. So I've done it, and that's why I know. Okay, so very important. Okay, so last time we did a Net Plus session, I drafted up a few questions, and what we did was we basically practiced dissecting the question, going through the answers, picking out the relevant ones, looking for the stuff that you can immediately throw out. Normally, CompTIA will give you a couple of those, which makes things a little bit easier if you do your homework. So we're going to do the same thing. The thing I like about these is I try to structure them the way that the questions are going to be structured and worded on the actual exam. And that kind of gives you guys an idea of how to prepare for these and what to look out for. So that's what we're going to do here. If there's anyone here that is not taking Net Plus or you're working on a different exam at the time, you know, feel free to take off. You don't have to sit through this if it's not something that you're currently working on. Just leave your name, and I'll make sure you get credit for attending the session. Okay. For everyone else, just go ahead and get started. Well, before we get started, actually, are there any particular questions about Net Plus that anyone wants me to address? Is anyone taking it recently and they have any concepts or anything like that that they do want to go over? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. Drafted up a few questions, try to make them as much like what we're going to be seeing on the exams as possible. So everyone, get this out of the way real quick. There we go. All right, so there's a few of them, and I'll just read through them, and then we'll do what we can to try to. Okay. All right. So this one here, we're saying that you've been brought into a small startup company as a network administrator to consult on the best way to set up the network. Okay, so looks like there's going to be a sales, a marketing, and the IT department to start with. The intention of expanding in the future. So, we're predicting for growth, but for now, just need to be sure that all the devices that we have are able to communicate with each other, as well as a central server and a printer. Okay, so not a lot of devices, just a few, it looks like. So the question is, what is the best way to structure this network? Now, I want everyone here to take a shot at this, whether you know it or not. Take a shot at it. Assume that you're sitting for the exam right now, and this is the question that popped up. Okay, what's the best way to Tim says E. Okay, so we starting it off. Also, I want you guys, even if you're making a guess, if you're taking a guess, try your best to put a Y with it. There has to be a reason that you're picking one over the others. Because what you're going to find on this exam is there's going to be a lot of questions where a lot of the answers that you see could all be viable answers, just depending on the question and in the situation, the scenario. So it's important to have a why. Yeah, no worries. Does anyone else have a guess? Okay. So far I only have an E. He's saying use a switch for each department and connect each switch to a router. Okay. Saying E because department-specific switches would keep each work group localized. Yeah. It's possible to do that. It's also possible to use one switch. Okay, so let's go through these first. Okay, so one, connect all devices to a single switch under the same VLAN. Okay. Who thinks this is a good option? And if so, why? And if not, why not? Come on, everyone. We need to have our thinking hats on. This is a question that you very well could see. Okay. So Mike is saying we need separation. Yeah, I agree. Right? Even though this is a small startup company, right? It says here that we have the idea or we have the intention of expanding in the future. So yeah, I mean, you don't want to have all devices under the same VLAN. Even in a small startup, it's a little bit more efficient to break them up. So I would probably throw A out. Okay, what about B? It says purchase a switch for each department and connect all devices. So it's kind of like this one without the router. Single point of failure, Matthew says. Switch for each department. Yeah, exactly. I like that. Does everyone agree? Switch for each department and connect all devices. Oh, that's for A. Actually, for B, you would have 3 switches. So, is that what you were referring to, Matthew? Was A or B? Okay, yeah, A. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's a single point of failure, right? One switch goes down, then your whole network is down, right? With B, purchase, who thinks B is a good option? So we have a switch for each department. There's a switch for sales, there's a switch for marketing, and there's a switch for IT. No one says B, huh? Still single point. Yeah, it could be if one of the switches goes down. Now, if you have spanning tree running, you should be able to um, to sidestep that. If you have spanning tree protocol running, but I see what you're saying, right? The other thing is kind of, even if you have three switches, if you have a switch for each department, you're kind of in the same scenario up here, except you have a couple more switches because you won't be able to split them up. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Why? But for each department, okay, you still need a router unless they're level 3. Okay, so we have some other stuff coming in, right? Matthew's saying you still need a router, right? Depending on what you're going to do. With C, it's saying connect all devices to a switch under different VLANs. What does anyone think about C? I think Matthew kind of three switches. Okay, Mike is saying on the test, so remember address layer 3 switches. That's the question is based on. Okay. Any thoughts on C? I'll give you guys a hint. This won't work. Who knows why? I think Matthew already mentioned it, but right. So yeah, that's exactly why Mike is saying on the statement, you need to ensure that all devices are able to communicate with each other. So with C, the problem with C is if you use one switch and you won't be able to split these up into VLANs, because once you split these into different VLANs, none of the devices will be able to communicate with each other except for the ones that are in the same VLAN, right? You're going to need a layer 3 switch at the very least for the devices to be able to communicate with each other. So C you can throw out, right? This doesn't work unless this is a layer 3 switch, right? Then we have connect all devices to a router. And then you kind of come back to the same thing that we talked about up here, right? Key word up here is obviously it's going to be the best. Which way is the best way to structure this? A few of these will work, right? Obviously, we could do this and it will work. Probably wouldn't be the best way to structure it, though. We could also do this, and you kind of come up with the same problem. You have a single point of failure here, right? So if we're talking about the best way to structure this network, it would probably be to use a switch for each department, and then you can connect them all to a router. And this is going to give you the ability to connect these VLANs, right? If you have a router, then you can split each of these into different departments. So sales will have its own VLAN, marketing can have its own VLAN, the IT department, they can all have their own separate VLANs, and then the router can connect them all. And then you don't have a single point of failure. So let's say that a switch goes down. Spanning tree protocol is normally running by default. So if something does happen and you have a point of failure somewhere in the network, spanning tree will fix it. So all devices will still be able to communicate with each other. even if you do have a point of failure somewhere. So, yeah, good job, guys. That was a good one. Be prepared for questions like this. You're going to see them. Sometimes it's going to have a lot more blah, blah, blah up here. So the key is just kind of determining, just like Mike was saying, right? Keyed in on a certain part, that this little area right here, this is very important. You need to be sure that all devices are able to communicate with each other, as well as a central server and the printer, right? So this printer can only be on one VLAN at a time, right? It can't be on both of them. It can't be on all three. So, yeah, in this scenario, what I would probably do, as long as it's cost efficient, assuming that it's in the budget to do it, I'd probably get a switch for each department and connect them to a router in this scenario. Okay. Any questions on this or concerns? I'm not sure what the DNS was for, but let's see what else you guys said. Yeah, so the basic thing is, in a situation like this, you need a layer 3 device if you're going to break up the network. Layer 3 device is needed so you can get them to communicate. So that's the main takeaway from this. Right. Okay. This one's probably going to be a little bit easier or a little bit harder, just depending on where you are with subnet mask. But I did it like this for a reason, okay? Because you could easily see something like this on the exam, okay? So this particular one here, we decided to improve performance in a large network. We want to create some VLANs via subnetting, okay? Basically, we're in a subnet network. After doing a device count, you'll determine that the marketing department will need 52 devices for their block. Which subnet mask will you use? Okay, this one, like I said, it can be easy or it could be hard, depending on where you are. But it's something that you definitely can see. And don't worry, if you don't know how to do this now, I will go over it and show you how you'll be able to determine this. But for now, we have 5 choices. Which ones are you guys going to use? Keep in mind, in the previous question, we were planning for expansion, right? For this particular question, what we want to do is we're planning for efficiency here. And I probably should have put it in the question, but this is something that you're gonna see on the exam. If you see a question like this, you always want to make sure that you pick the most efficient one, which is going to leave the least amount of extra addresses. Okay, all those addresses, when you get to Security Plus, all the extra ones, those are threat vectors, right? Each open port it's a path into any path into your network is a threat vector. You want to eliminate the amount of those as you can. You want to eliminate as many of those as you can. So we're going to do the same thing here. So Dan is asking, if it's only 52 devices, do you really need to subnet? And the answer is yes, because in this instance, we're just talking about the marketing department. We didn't mention the sales, and we didn't mention the IT department either. Okay, so we're just talking about, we need to subnet a block for the marketing department. Okay, the IT department, maybe they have 100 devices, right? And that's why we have a need to subnet. Maybe the sales department has 140 devices, just depending. This one, we're just worried about the marketing department, so it is necessary. That's a good question. Quickly answer subnetting questions, right? Yeah, don't worry, we'll go over it. Incomplete info. No, it's not incomplete. We're only focusing on marketing for now. And this is how they'll present it to you on the exam as well, right? For the most part, they're not going to have you subnet all the departments. They'll just say there's a few departments that need to be subnetted. This department needs this amount of devices. Which subnet mask are you going to use? Okay, so I'm trying to make it as close to what you're going to see on the exam as possible. Okay. Look at the keywords. Yeah, always. Okay, so Kelly says 192. And does anyone else have any other guesses? 62, 64, and oh, he put a link in for subnetting on there. Mike did. I think. Okay, so far Kelly's the only one. Well, actually Tim says Tim agrees. All right. He says A, it's either 62 or 64 hosts per subnet for total subnets with. Okay. Yeah, you're going a little advanced, but I see what you're doing. Okay. Dan says 52, keep it close. So no other departments may need to make a decision. Well, the other departments, as long as the total block that you have is enough for each of the, it's enough to accommodate each of the devices, then you'll be fine. Because the IT department could have less. Maybe they only have 30 devices, right? So, okay, no worries. So we're gonna work through this real quick. Okay. Now, and it's not long drawn out either. Right. The way that I show subnetting is really pretty simple. It's just it comes down to the bits. If you know the amount of bits in each subnet mask that are being used for host and the amount of bits that are being used for masking, it's actually pretty simple. So what you want to do for this question is, first you have to understand, what this is saying. This is actually telling you something, right? There's 8 bits in each octet here, right? This is your first, this is your second, this is your third, this is your fourth, right? And if we know that if each bit is on in an octet, you get 255, right? So basically what you're doing is, you're counting the bits. So let me show this a little simpler so I don't get everyone confused here. Show you how you go about doing this, okay? So I'm going to open up another, I believe it's this one. Yeah, here we go here. Okay, so this is a good one to use. This is a document that I created a while ago when I was showing how to subnet and all that. Okay, so real simply put, actually I think the other one would be better to use. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Subnetting. There we go. Okay. So when it comes to your IPv4 addresses, right, I'm not going to teach a dissertation or anything like that. There's a lot of videos that show how to do this, but I'm going to show the way that I learned. Okay, so you have 32 bits. Okay, out of these 32 bits, it's split up into into 4 octets. I'm sorry, right? Each octet has 8 bits. So pretty simply put, you're either going to have ones or you're going to have zeros when you're talking about a subnet mask, okay? Your ones represent the portion of the address that's being masked. It's also the part that never changes, okay? So that's what this is right here. And your zeros, this represents your host, okay? And so what you do is, in this scenario here, we actually have 8 zeros, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dumb this down a bit. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to assume that this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're going to assume that this looks like this. Okay. And I'm going to turn this yellow. There we go. Turn this yellow too. Okay, there we go. So in this scenario here, this is what our subnet mask looks like. Okay. In this scenario, let me do that. There we go. Okay. So if you have all the ones, if all these bits are turned on, you get 255. Okay. Same thing here. All these bits are turned on, you get 255. All these bits are turned on, you get 255. All these bits except for this last one is turned on because you can't have this. Okay. This is a broadcast address. It's not a valid IPv4 address. It's not a valid host address. Okay. So you can't have it. So at the very least, you have a /31 here, all right? And what the slash just means is that the first 31 bits are all turned on. So you have a /31, which means that you only have 2 variations for a host. These stay the same. This can change, but it can only change to a 1, right? It can only change to a 1 or a 0. So you only have 2 variations here. This can be a 0 or it can be a 1. So when it comes to host, for a /31, you have 2 addresses, no host. Okay, let me come back to the other document real quick just to show you that. Okay, up here, this is your fourth octet here, right? So for a /31, you have 2 available addresses, but you have no host because there's always 2 excluded addresses. Okay, so stay with me. I'm gonna try to get through this as fast as we can without skipping any details, okay? All right, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to change this now. Okay? What I basically did here is I just added more room for host, okay? So now this slash, instead of 31, now it's a 30. Sorry about that, okay? So now this is a 30, right? Because now the first 30 bits are 1s, the last 2 are 0s, okay? How many variations do we have now? Before we had 2, all right? You can either have a 1 or a 0. What about now? Anyone? You can turn your mic on and shout it out if you know it, type it in the chat box,
4.
whatever works. I just want to make sure everyone's thinking.
4.
Dan said still 1 or 0. Someone said 4. I heard it. Not sure who it was, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not working.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all. So yeah, you're correct though, right? You can either have 0, 0, right? You can have 0, 1, you can have 1, 0, or you can have 1, 1, right? That's 4 variations. So when I went from 31, I went from /31 to having 2, and I went to /30, and we have 4, right? So now we have room for 2 addresses. I'm going to come back to the chart just to make sure everyone stays with me, okay? So I went from a /31 where I had 2 available addresses to a /30. Now I have 4, right? 4 available addresses, but only 2 hosts, because you always have to take out 2. There's always 2 excluded addresses. You can't use the actual subnet ID, and you cannot use the broadcast address. The first and the last address are always excluded, even when there's only 2 addresses available. That's why you don't use the /31. Okay, is everyone still with me? Any questions before I move on? Okay, good. So one more time, we're going to come back here and we're going to do it again. All right, hopefully everyone catches the pattern on this one. We'll see. One. Okay. I'm sorry. There we go. All right, so now we're going to go to /29. I'm going to do this one more time, right? So I'm going to take away a 0. I'm going to take away a 1. I'm going to add a 0. Okay? These are our ID bits. These are our host bits right here. Okay? So here we have 2. Here we have 4. How many do you assume we have here? If I get rid of one more masking bit and I add one more hosting bit.
8
Sherry says
to the 3rd.
Charles says 8.
8.
I have Matthew says 8. Do we have any? Does anyone else disagree? Dan says 8 addresses minus 2 for host. I think you guys are all catching on. Awesome. Okay. So I basically just took this from a concept that looked like Chinese trigonometry, and I just turned it into basic addition, right? And that's basically what it is. So when you're trying to find out which subnet mask you're going to use, oh, I'm sorry, I did forget something. Forgot to change this. Okay. So for our /30, I'm sorry, let me come back real quick. I don't want to skip anything. For our /30, I should have changed this to 252. Does everyone see that? All these bits are turned on. These ones aren't, right? So this is 255 minus 1 minus 3. Minus 1, 2, minus 3. Okay? Hopefully everyone's with me on that. And we're going to do it one more time. Okay, so now I'm going to go to /29. Okay? Which is one more bit. Okay? Who knows what this should look like now? Tyler says he thinks he's getting it now. Good. 252. Well, we just had 252. So you can do this one or two ways, okay? You could either add these this way, or you can take 255 because you know that if all these bits are turned on, it's 255, right? So what you can do is you can just take these placeholders and add these up and take it away from 255. So 255 minus 1 plus 2 plus 4, right? Is that 7? Well, no, you weren't way off. If we were still on /30, you would have been right on the dot. But yeah, so basically you're getting 255 minus 7 here, right? 1 plus 2 plus 4. And that's going to give you 248, I believe, right? Okay, so this is what our slash is going to be. Okay, this is what our subnet mask is going to look like, right? And this is what it's going to be binaried out. Okay, so I think everyone should have the hang of it now. Let's come back to the question. All right. So basically, we're looking for 52 devices, right? And so what we can do is come here, and if you want, you can just go, right, 2, 4, 8, right, 16, 32. Is 32 enough? No. 32 times 32, double 32, you get 64, right? Exactly, Dan. Yeah, we needed 52. So in that case, 32 is not going to be enough. So our subnet mask should look like this, I think. Right? Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? Okay. Yeah, we're going to do it right now. I'm going to show you how. Okay. So if we did it this way, right, you can easily do this: 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. 64 will give us enough, right? And we don't want to have too many. And so now what you do is you count these, right? You have 128 plus 64, right? Which is going to give you 192. Is everyone still with me? And this is a slash what? 8 times 3 is 24, right? 8, 16, 24 plus 2 is 26. So this is a slash 26. Is everyone with me? I didn't lose anyone, right? Awesome. Does anyone have any questions? No questions. Awesome. Okay. Once you get it, it's just about practice. Okay, the more you practice this, it'll be instilled in your head. And when you're doing questions like these, when you see questions like these on the exam, you'll be able to do them like that. Something I recommend though, okay? Every exam that they give you, they're going to give you a little sheet that you can write on before you start. I always, whenever I'm doing a networking exam, I always put this chart at the top. Okay, that way if I get a question like that, I don't even have to think about it. I just use my quick reference thing and I keep moving. Okay, but keep in mind, because they will try to get you, I guarantee it. All right, you always have to take away 2 when they're talking about host. So even though, let's say we were just using 52, right? Let me give you a little landmine here. Okay, what if I did this? Oh, by the way, whoever says 192, you are right. You're absolutely right. That was the one. Okay. This is actually a /24. This is going to give you 100. This is going to give you 254 addresses, 256 addresses to 254 hosts. This is a broadcast address, right, which I just showed you. It's invalid. You can't use it. You can throw this one out immediately. This is 224. This is your /27 here, right? So this is actually going to give you 32 addresses, I believe. 32 addresses with 30 hosts. And this one right here is actually a /23, right? So you wouldn't use this one. This is actually going to give you 500 and so you're basically you're going to double what you have at 224, what you have up here, double that in I'm sorry, 250, yeah, it's 254, 256, 254, right? So for /23, actually you double 250, 256, you end up with 512, right? So this is too many, this is not enough, this one is perfect. This is invalid, and this is too many too, okay? What if I did this? Be ready for this because they could try to get you. Okay, I guarantee it. Maybe not on Net Plus, but if any of you are going to be taking Cisco, this is you definitely need to be familiar with ranges. Okay, if they try to do this, you come up to this chart, right? Actually, let me come back. I did that wrong. 63. Right? So if I have 63 devices that I need now, and I come up to this chart, you can see that a /26 is going to give me 64 devices, but it's only going to give me 62 hosts. So in that instance, you're going to have to go back up. You're going to have to free up more bits. And you're going to have to double 64. So it's going to give you a lot of extra addresses, but it's necessary to be able to accommodate all of the devices. So you need to be careful that you don't get caught there, because even though /26 gives you 64 addresses, it's not going to give you, it only gives you 62 hosts. So in an instance like that, you have to make sure that you don't get caught thinking, okay, 64, I'm good here, right? In that case, you're actually going to need a /25. Okay, so, yeah, where are we at with time? Oh, we're almost out. Okay. I'm actually, since we got off to a late start, I'm willing to go a little later. If anyone has to take off or anything like that, that's fine. Just make sure you leave your name before you take off so I give you credit, okay? I'm not really watching the attendee list right now, so. Okay, are there any questions on finding the number of hosts before I move on from this? There are actually a couple other things that you need to know how to do when it comes to subnetting. I don't have time to go over it, so that's something that we're going to have to do probably in the next session or something. But for now, at the very least, you should be able to do that. And if you want, this document is actually in the forum under the Net Plus section, and you can use this to practice. You can also use examcompass.com. there are a ton of subnetting questions. Just do the subnetting section and you can practice your skills there. But I wouldn't recommend doing that yet because there are other aspects that I haven't shown you yet, and you won't know how to do some of those. So, okay. Alrighty, so let's do one more question. We do have a little bit more time, and we'll go ahead and get out of here. If there's nothing else when it comes to subnetting. Okay. Let me change this back, actually. Okay, so last one. This one is a little bit more to the point. Don't expect to see too many of these on the exam, but when you do see them, take advantage of it. That's all I can really say, okay? Okay, so here we have, you just set up a new SOHO network for a small company. You know, real to the point. Which of the following would harden the network? So basically, we're looking for the one of these that's going to, if you translate this, it just means make the network more secure. Okay. So, looking at all of these, which one of these do you think? By the way, knowing this is part of the battle. Knowing what this means. If you don't know what this means, then I mean any one of these could be like, okay, well, yeah, let me do that, right? So it's very important to be able to spot the keywords in here. And this one is really just this. Also SOHO, because there's certain things that you would do in a SOHO that you probably want to do in a large network, and vice versa. So this is also another keyword here. Okay, something to pay attention to. But okay, so it looks like we have an answer so far. Does anyone else have any? Kelly says disable DHCP. What else do we have? Any other guesses here? Kelly, why do you believe that disabling the DHCP would harden the network? Someone else, give me a guess. Even if you're just guessing, take one. Matthew says static addresses. Okay.
DHCP is almost never configured correctly with appropriate pools and permissions. It therefore allows people access into your network.
I want to expect a small network. Okay, Mesher says static is false security. Yeah. I wouldn't expect a small network to have VLAN, so that will wipe out the first two. Okay, yeah, see, that's what I like to see. Right, you're thinking, although you're thinking through it, and it's able to, makes you able to do certain things, right? So, yeah, she has a good point. Dan says, Mesher says static is false security. Yeah, I could see why he would say that. But I can tell you this, if you have a network that's set up for static addressing, it's definitely going to make it harder for someone to get on your network. So, I mean, I would agree with what he said there, but it's also, it's definitely going to make it harder. So, out of all of these, and basically when you're taking the exam, it's basically going to come down to that. You're looking for the one that makes the most sense out of what's given, right? I could have given a few more, and there could have been something that was a little bit more hardening than that. But so let's go through these real quick. So creating multiple VLANs. Creating multiple VLANs is something, like she said, that's something that you would probably be looking to do more in a large network. I'm not saying you wouldn't do it in a SOHO, but the main thing is it's not really making the system more secure. It's more of it's making it more optimized. It's making the performance. It's improving the performance of the network. And so that's why creating more VLANs it's something that you probably wouldn't do if you're trying to harden the network. It's not the first thing that would come to mind. Enabling SDP, we talked about it a little bit before. This actually requires you to know what SDP is, right? You have to know what it is and the purpose of it, right? Spanning tree protocol is for continuity in your network, right? In case a link goes down somewhere, it keeps it going, right? That's what spanning trees' main purpose is to keep your network going in case, something happens. Creates continuity, creates a backup route for, and that's not really, and that's more of an optimized thing as well, right? That's really why you wouldn't go to these first, right? Opening the VTY lines is actually the opposite, right? And it also requires you to understand what the VTY lines are for, but it's for remoting into your access points, right? So if you want to use Telnet or you want to use Secure Shell to get into your other access points, your switches or routers or whatever, what you would need to do is you would need to open up the VTY lines, right, which gives you access to that. What that does, it makes your network a little bit more convenient, all right? It doesn't necessarily make it more secure. As a matter of fact, you're opening more ports, and you're creating more avenues into your network. And so, you wouldn't want to. That's not something that you would do if you were thinking about hardening a network. And so, it would come down to disabling DHCP. Right? If you disable DHCP, that means that you have to configure all the devices to get on your network statically, and it requires you to know a great deal more information than you would need to know if you were doing it dynamically, right? If you're doing it dynamically, you just need to know the SSID and you need to know the password. If you know that, then you're on the network. But if you need to assign the addresses statically, you need to know the range, right? So you need to know the IP. You need to know the what's the word? The subnet ID. There we go. Right. So you need to know the subnet ID. You need to know the subnet mask. Right. You need to know the excluded addresses. So you don't configure an address that's excluded. You need to know the default gateway. Right. You need to know the DNS server. Right. And so, when you're assigning addresses dynamically, all that information is automatically configured. Right. Everything's coming from a pool. But if you're assigning your addresses statically, you need to know all that information, right? You also need to be able to go around and do it to all the devices. So, in this instance, in the Soho network, statically assigning the addresses will be the best way to harden the system out of all these choices. Okay, and that's what it is. Kelly, you're on a roll. Good job. No worries. I just went a little longer because I know we got off to a late start. So, I do apologize for that. The takeaway here is, make sure that you're looking for the keywords. Normally, there's something in the question that's going to give away what you're looking for down here, and do your homework. Okay. Notice that I'm using a lot of acronyms down here because, for the most part, that's what you're going to see on the exam. They're going to assume that you know this stuff and that you speak the language. So you have to be prepared for it and make sure you do your homework. Not just knowing what this stuff is, but what it's used for, the purpose behind it, the why. And that'll kind of let you either include it or exclude it, depending on what they're asking for. Okay. So anyway, I think that was a good set of questions there. And this was a great session, in my opinion. So it will be posted pretty soon. I just need to go through and edit out whatever doesn't belong, and I will have it posted in the area where I showed you all before. So any questions on anything that we covered today before we get out of here? Nope. All righty. Well, thank you all for attending. We will be back on Thursday, and that session will focus primarily on A+. All right. Talk to you all.